Hello and welcome to the Pop Council Podcast, the show where we cover everything in pop culture from Marvel to DC to Star Wars and everything in between. I'm Jami Philbrick, entertainment journalist and critic for We Live Entertainment and HCA board member. And I'm joined here every week and this week as well by Wendy Zawe. Hi, Wendy.
Hello, Jami. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing so good. Thank you. Happy to see you. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday. Happy day after Valentine's Day. Did you have a nice week?
I did. The Valentine's Day was a little weird. Typically, I would have gone to Target and gotten silly little Valentines and too much themed candy to put around the house and things like that. This year, I didn't do that. So it felt a little weird, but we did treat ourselves to a nice meal last night.
Oh, that's great.
At home.
That's fun. Oh, good. Did you cook?
No, I was like, no, I'm retiring from the kitchen for last night because I didn't want to clean up. So that's the whole reason why. And we just did some curbside pickup to support some of our favorite businesses around here.
Nice. Postmates and all those Grubhub, they're always good in a pinch when you don't want to cook.
What did you do? Did you do anything fun?
You know, I spent most of the day with my Valentine, my dog Murphy. You can see behind me on my couch. And we went to the park a couple times and played threw the ball around, and then got some buco de pepos for dinner last night, which was nice. Postmates as well.
So good.
Well, we've got a lot. I could talk about fine dining in Los Angeles with you all day, Wendy, but we got some business to get to. We got some great topics that we're going to talk about today. Captain Marvel has cast their villain for Captain Marvel 2. There's a Face-Off sequel coming. And we're, of course, going to talk a little bit of WandaVision. But let's start off with the big topic on everyone's mouth and tongue today, on their minds, is the big trailer drop of the final trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, March 18th, otherwise known as the Snyder Cut. And Wendy, let's just jump into it. What did you think?
I really enjoyed the trailer. I like seeing some of the new footage, specifically we've seen this before already in a previously released teaser, but it was of the Flash seemingly in a different, I don't know if it's on a different Earth, on a different time zone, but it looks like Iris West has joined us. So there is that. I am always, of course, looking forward to more Cyborg. I've always said that while I enjoyed watching the theatrical release of Justice League, the theatrical cut of the Justice League, I always felt that I had wanted to see more of Cyborg. And I feel like with this one, we're definitely going to get a lot more like extended footage and storyline for Cyborg. So we're going to see that. And of course, at the end of the trailer, kind of almost like an end cap, we see the one and only the Joker. This is the one that's played by Jared Leto. And we know that this probably is the one because he previously played the one in Suicide Squad. So we see him in this one looking like maybe it's the nightmare scenario, but Joker is looking quite different. He's got the longer hair. He's got the heavy white makeup on. There's no face tattoos. There's no damage across the forehead. And it's interesting that I'm curious about the scenario. Who else will be showing up in this kind of nightmare scene? Any more cameos? Are we going to get an appearance by Lex Luthor? There's a lot of questions, but I think the ending the trailer with the Joker and Batman conversation was just the cherry on top.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what I wanted.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack there. But let me start with, you mentioned Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor. So I thought it was interesting that they used some of his dialogue as well as some of Kevin Costner's dialogue as narration, their dialogue from Batman v Superman. I believe the other voiceovers was a little Alfred, which may be new. That might be from this. And the Bruce Wayne voiceover seemed like that may have been from a previous movie as well, or the previous Justice League, the theatrical cut. So the fact that Eisenberg's voiceover is used in there and Costner's voiceover is used in there make me wonder if they're back in the movie. From what I understood, originally the end credit scene was Lex Luthor and Deathstroke, which is what we saw in the theatrical, except it wasn't talking about making a Injustice Society. It was a lead-in to the Batman Ben Affleck film that would have been. I'll get Batman versus Deathstroke, right? So I'm curious, are they still going to use that tag scene, even though we know there won't be a Ben Affleck Batman? Did Eisenberg come in and reshoot that sequence? Like, I'm not sure if Eisenberg's in the movie now or not. I don't think his name was on the list of actors that did reshoots. So nor was Kevin Costner's. So that's all, we're going to find out. I think you're absolutely right. The Joker sequence is clearly in the Nightmare sequence. There's clearly more shots of Nightmare in this trailer. I believe that Deathstroke will appear in the Nightmare sequence. We didn't get that confirmation from the trailer, but that's my own theory. I believe that he'll be part of that. It makes sense to me that in a post-apocalyptic future where Darkseid's taken over the planet, Batman needs to find allies anywhere he can, and Joker and Deathstroke would be good allies if you're battling Darkseid. And Superman at the same time.
The black suit! I didn't say the black suit! Oh, yeah.
The black suit was amazing. I think that first image that opens the trailer of Superman was Doomsday killing him from BVS, but I don't know. That's just what I was
That's what it looked like to me as well, because he saw the wound there on his chest.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of mix of a couple of BVS shots in there as well. And speaking of the footage, I was surprised at how much was new. Now, I didn't count how many shots are in the trailer, but I counted how many shots I felt I'd seen before.
Okay.
And it was only like 12. So if you consider that, let's say there's 100 shots in the trailer, I mean, who knows? That's still a lot of new footage percentage-wise than what I, thought I had seen before. So that alone is pretty exciting. And the Joker stuff was great. And the Cyborg, there was that really cool shot of like Cyborg having new tech. I think from the background that also looked like it might be Nightmare. I'm not sure. And you're absolutely right. That sequence is with Flash is the sequence where he meets Iris West. And that was cut from I don't think that's a, alternate universe or anything like that. That was, I think, a subplot. Earth. Yeah, that was a subplot that I think he had to cut early. That's something that Zach's been talking about the whole time. I know a lot of fans are going nuts over, obviously, the Joker inclusion at the end. But did you also notice the Bat Tank? That's clearly from Dark Knight Returns.
I thought so, but I didn't want to say it because I didn't have any sort of like conclusion when it comes to like it, but now that you're saying it, I would like to trust that you know your stuff. So that's really exciting that this is kind of all blending in together. That's really, really great. I'm looking forward to this. And I also know that we're about to be treated to basically a movie, a Justice League fan event is what it feels like, because this isn't like a 1 or 2 hour movie. As you can see, post by Moose Movies here writes, do you guys think this movie will be hurt by its runtime? I actually kind of love that it's 4 hours because what is a director's cut without it being, this is what the fans had asked for, and that Zack Snyder now gets to put together for us, the fans. So what's great about this specific way as it's happening is that it is being released on HBO only. I believe there's no theatrical release for this as far as I know. That means that we as fans, yes, we're all going to sit there for whenever HBO releases it. We're going to hit that play button, but then we can pause if we need to. If there's a really exciting moment or you miss some dialogue, you can go back. So I actually don't feel like the movie is going to hurt by its runtime. I know it can be a little bit maybe intimidating, be like, oh, I don't know if I want to see a 4 hour movie. It's like, well, you don't have to sit through the whole 4 hours in one shot. If you don't want to, you can build in a nice little intermission for yourself, order some lunch, order from your favorite local business, support them, have a break, and then, enjoy it kind of in sections, if you will. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I know that Zach is pushing for a theatrical release, especially in territories that don't have HBO Max. So I think he was even talking about that in an article that came out yesterday. So he's pushing for that. And he has mentioned that there would be, in a theatrical release, a 10-minute old school intermission. Really? Yeah, and that he has like a particular place that would happen in the course of the film. So that's all really interesting. Yeah, again, I think for the fans, right? Fans of Justice League, fans of Zack Snyder, fans who didn't think the theatrical cut was a good representation of what this story should be. Obviously, they're going to love HBO Max. They're going to love the 4 hours. It's not going to be a problem. Most of us will stay up till midnight the night before. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a problem. What is curious to me, and I think that the uphill battle that HBO Max has, is who is the audience outside of us, right? So I know like a lot of my friends and my family back home in Boston who, you know, aren't as plugged into the inner workings of Hollywood as we are, or even maybe, you know, maybe they love superhero movies, but they don't really know if Iron Man's DC or Marvel. Like they don't know, you know what I mean? I could see a lot of people being like, wait, why didn't Justice League come out a couple years ago? Why is there another, wait, it's the same actors? Is this the same? And like being kind of confused by the whole thing if they don't know the whole release the Snyder Cut history. So I think that's going to be a bigger marketing battle for them. In the explanation of why do you need to see 4 hours of a movie you think you saw 3 years ago? To the average person.
Pose your question one more time so I can kind of wrap my brain around it.
Yeah. So you know, you're somebody's mom who likes superhero movies but doesn't really know what's DC and what's Marvel. She doesn't know, you know, she just likes Spider-Man or whatever. So explain to her why she needs to watch on HBO Max a 4-hour version of a movie she's already seen.
I would probably explain to her that, you know, you start with the basics, right? Everybody of, I think, any age, there's some very prominent, iconic superheroes that people know. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. That's the three. Like I grew up watching Superman movies, and then later on kind of like I was like, oh, what's Spider-Man? Like my dad was always like, you got to learn about these superheroes. My mom's like, don't have her watch those movies. And so you kind of start with that and the origin of them, and then you can just put it really simple and say the world needs help, and Batman has recruited these other superheroes, and then you tell them about Flash and what they do, tell him about Cyborg and kind of what he's about. And then from there, you can kind of explain that this movie actually got put out. The director had suffered a terrible family tragedy. He had to leave the project. So they brought in a different director. The movie fans didn't really love what they saw in theaters, and they fought for this longer cut by the original director. And then we ended up with a 4-hour movie. So you can kind of explain it in the sense that this is for the fans, also by a fan, because you can't sit there and say Zack Snyder's not a fan, you know, of the Justice League. That's why he's worked so hard to do this. So you kind of explain that it's more than just like, look what I have, this is art. It's more about how passionate these people are for these stories and these characters, and that's why there's a 4-hour movie. And then you can also say, you know, you don't have to sit there and watch the full 4 hours. You're in control of how you want to watch it. So you can pause.
That's a good point.
You can come back tomorrow. You know, you can if you want to do the 4-hour thing, like if you can do like a 1 hour here and 2 hour, another hour here. You know, you can play with that. So no one is going to handcuff you to your couch and make you watch it 4 hours straight. You can watch it however you like. That's the best way kind of I can sell it.
I think that's a great explanation. And I would actually do the same thing, but in reverse, right? So I would actually explain to my mom the history of the Snyder Cut first, right? The sort of the politics behind it, why he had to leave, the fact that they didn't really like what he was doing to begin with, even before his tragedy. And we're sort of, you know, because of BVS, we're sort of curtailing what he wanted to do originally, and really kind of emphasize the fact that this is a filmmaker, an artist whose vision was taken away from him, and he's getting an opportunity to finish that vision. So as just someone who's interested in things like that, that would pique my interest. And then of course, yes, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Yeah, you want to get to all that. We got a question from Tari. I like that it's more of a direct continuation of BVS and MOS, Man of Steel, of course, in tone and scope, and it sets up larger, brighter future for these heroes. Hopefully this leads to Cavill's solo sequel. More of a comment than a question, but I agree. I think that this is Zack Snyder's vision, and he has said that he envisioned sort of the Superman arc over these 3 films. And, as I've said before, I think it's just really amazing that he's getting to fulfill that. Whether we as fans like his vision, his fulfilled vision, is another story, but I think it's great he's getting that opportunity.
I've been asking for a Man of Steel 2 for a really long time. I always felt like there was something missing before we got to see Batman v Superman. Like, should there have been like a, in any case, I've been looking forward to a Man of Steel 2. I really hope we get it. I really hope Cavill gets to reprise his role as Clark Kent and Superman, just because I really love him in that role. Like, when I look at him, I'm just like, Superman. Yes.
Oh, he's a great Superman. I think he hasn't, and this is going to sound weird, but hasn't had the opportunity to be a great Superman yet, even though he is a great Superman. Do you know what I'm saying by that?
The potential is there. We all see it, but it hasn't been, I feel like, properly displayed.
And I think that's what Zack was trying to do or the hopes is that this arc will, in Snyder's Justice League, finish off and end with Superman being kind of where we wanted him to be, which actually the only thing I like out of the theatrical cut is the end credit scene with Superman and Flash, which I think does show you sort of the Superman. Race. Yeah, that is sort of, that's kind of more the Superman that I was hoping he would become. So even though we know that's not a Zack Snyder scene, I hope something like, I hope the character ends sort of in that spot.
Yeah, we'll see. And maybe, who knows, maybe we get an extended race scene and see who wins, the Flash or Superman.
Who knows? Yeah, exactly.
That'll be exciting. Yeah.
I mean, and that's really like right from the comic books, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I feel like Zack, it's interesting because it's like he's taken these characters and, made them darker and more serious. That's been sort of the criticism. But DC was always a bit more darker and serious than, say, the Marvel Universe. So the fact that these characters, I think a lot of people weren't ready for his vision. But what's really interesting is that it took the theatrical version being a bomb in order to get this version, right? And so had that movie been a hit, we wouldn't be here. Had that movie made $600-700 million, we wouldn't be here.
That's true.
So it's kind of sort of funny in the fact that they had to take it away from Zack and curtail what he was trying to do to eventually get what he was trying to do in the first place. And now that may be what saves the DCEU. Who knows?
Who knows? And I've never minded a quote unquote darker, story or a darker look when it comes to the DCU. I just think that whatever serves the story is going to serve the story. And if it happens to be dark, great. If it happens to have some comedy, fantastic. My thing is always, if I can connect to the story, I can feel for the characters, I'm in. It's fine, Yeah. But it's just got to fit the story. It can't be like, well, we have to make it funny. Like, why do you have to make it funny or have to make it this way? Just let the script and let the story tell itself.
Yeah, and I feel like that was part of the problem with Batman vs. Superman. I mean, even the theatrical cut, I was kind of like, wait, a lot of this doesn't make sense. And then a week later, they released the director's ultimate cut on
for BVS?
Yeah, and all of a sudden, the director's cut made sense because they put back the scenes that they cut that were from the plot. That explained what Lex Luthor was up to, you wouldn't understand. So it makes me feel like Zack coming back, at least the movie is going to make some sense. You know what I mean? At least you may not like the vision, but I feel like at least we're going to have a full movie.
Yeah, agreed.
Which is more than we can say for the theatrical cut.
Before we move on, Chris Mendez here has a question that writes, do you both think that Jesse Eisenberg was a good Lex Luthor?
Well, go ahead. What do you think?
I really like Jesse Eisenberg's acting. I enjoy him in all the various movies that he's done. I was a little bit... his version of the Lex Luthor wasn't what I expected, but I believe, and please correct me if I am wrong, he is not like he's kind of like Lex Luthor Jr. essentially. Is that maybe correct? Because I just didn't feel a certain gravitas when it came to his version of Lex Luthor. I felt it a little bit more at the end where he, won the scene with Deathstroke, and then the end scene with the jail scene where he's kind of going crazy and stuff like that. So like I felt it a little bit more then, but there are other parts in the movie where I was like, I don't know. And I guess that's kind of like where my own expectations got in the way of me enjoying the character that the story that he is trying to tell as well. So there's kind of that interfering as well.
Well, so to answer your question, Jesse Eisenberg is playing Lex Luthor, not a Lex Luthor Jr.
Okay, got it.
He does mention his father. I don't know if he mentions him by name in BVS, but that would be Lionel Luthor. So it's not like a Lex Luthor Jr.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
But I do think he is a Lex Luthor Jr. in the sense that I think Snyder's take on it was the same as his take on Superman. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was introducing full-fledged Lex Luthor in BVS, right? So I think the idea was that over Justice League, over a Man of Steel 2, he would become more of the Lex Luthor. And I think that's why you kind of like him towards the end of the movie and in Justice League, because he's more of the Lex Luthor we want. So I think it was just sort of like that kind of long setup that Snyder sort of does. I feel
we just didn't get to see the payoff.
Right,
in the theatrical cut of it,
exactly. And also partly we didn't get to see payoff because a lot of the scenes that the studio wanted to cut from BVS to shorten the length were Lex Luthor scenes that explained the plot of the movie, which was my whole issue why I thought the ultimate cut was so much better. The studio wanted to leave in everything that was leading to Justice League, the Nightmare stuff, all that stuff. And honestly, if you're never going to go back to the Nightmare now, obviously we know that Zack planned to.
Right.
But in a sense, if they weren't going to go back to it, then you really don't need it in BVS. And a lot of the things they cut from BVS were like the explanations that, Batman wasn't killing criminals. Lex Luthor was framing Batman for killing criminals. And that's how he pitted Superman versus Batman. But that's all cut from the theatrical cut and only in the ultimate. So it's more of my example of just like the studio really, messing with Zack and messing with, if you hire someone, you got to let them do their job.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's, I think, been part of that. But to answer Christopher's question, I actually thought Jesse Eisenberg was pretty good for what he was trying to do and where it was going to go. But I don't think he was afforded enough time, he or Zack, to sort of let that unfold. But listen, we talked a lot about Zack Snyder's Justice League. We're excited for it. We're looking forward to it. Let's move on. Big casting announcement this week, Wendy, with Captain Marvel 2.
Yes.
Zawe Ashton will play the main villain, the big bad. We don't know who that is, so begin your speculation now. But and I have to be honest, I'm not really familiar with Zawe's work. I haven't really seen any of the projects she's been in, so I can't really say myself if I think she's great casting. And also not knowing who she's been cast as, it's kind of hard to say as well. But what are your initial thoughts?
I like that with Captain Marvel 2, we're getting a whole, not just new characters, but also kind of not newer actors, but essentially actors that we hadn't known prior to this. Obviously, with Monica Rambeau, and she's going to be in Captain Marvel 2, we know that because now we're watching WandaVision. That's where she was introduced, and we're also getting a Miss Marvel. So like the addition of this, it makes me really, really happy. I always love when they, one, introduce new characters, and two, they introduce me to new actors and their work. So I definitely want to kind of take a look at her shows. I think Fresh Meat is one of them that she's in. So I definitely want to kind of take a watch and just get familiar with her. And obviously the speculation for who she would be, like the ultimate baddie, I feel like she will probably I mean, I don't know. So it probably is just me being a theory, and I don't even know how to pronounce this correctly, but she's like the queen. She's like the ruler of the Skrull Empire, Queen Varenki. So I feel like with Carol Danvers and what they gave us in Captain Marvel, the first one, because there's a lot of history with the Skrulls, I feel like it would really fit to kind of revisit that again and kind of see where we are at this point. So I would kind of love that, and then maybe, I don't know, this can lead us into like Secret Invasions.
Absolutely. Secret Invasion. Yeah, listen, the Skrulls make perfect sense. I think that's why that was sort of a red herring in Captain Marvel, right? Because all of the fans, Marvel fans, are expecting the Skrulls to be the bad guys, and then we find out, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, that the Skrulls are, you know, on our side in this version, and the Kree isn't. So that's interesting. I was kind of looking down the list of Captain Marvel's villains from the comic books, and one name that really pops up that a lot of people have been talking about is Moonstone. That's a female villain that would sort of make some of the most sense. But then when you go down the list, almost every other of her major villains, and I also don't think that it matters if it's male or female. They could do a gender switch. So
this is totally true.
I'm kind of looking at both sides.
Yeah.
Almost all of them we've seen already, right? We've already seen Jude Law played, I forget the name, but you know, that character, and then Thanos we've seen, and Ronan the Accuser we've seen, and the character that Joning Hunsun plays we've seen. So these are all sort of the villains that she's famous for in the books. Doctor Doom is another one, but I don't think that that's necessary. Doctor Doom. Now,
I don't think we're ready for Doctor Doom.
I don't think we're ready for that quite yet. I think
2022 maybe, unless we get some sort of a hint at it during WandaVision.
But the two female villains in the comics that are her villains that we haven't seen yet. This is interesting. It's Mystique and Rogue from the X-Men. So I'm just setting that out there. While it's not very likely, Mystique and Rogue were very, very. In fact, Rogue got her powers in the comics from Captain Marvel. Remember in the 90s cartoon, Rogue could fly and had super strength? It's because she drained too much of Carol Danvers and permanently. Yeah. So there is that connection in the comics and the cartoons. And obviously Mystique was a big in the comics as Rogue's adopted mother. So there's a big part of that. So, that would be an interesting way to introduce those two characters into the MCU. I'm not saying I think it's very likely. I'm just saying it is a slight possibility.
I mean, I would love to see the X-Men already in the MCU, but I think, while I love your theory so much because I love those characters, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for us to properly introduce the mutants and how Marvel wants to do it. Either they do it via somehow in WandaVision. I keep bringing it back because we're kind of starting to see a little bit of hints of that, or maybe we get it, in the Doctor Doom movie. I don't know, or Deadpool could be the one that does it. I'm not sure, but this is really interesting, and I like that there's a whole list. If you just do a Google search on who she could play, there's a whole bunch of them. And I like what you said, that gender at this point, it may not matter, because don't discount the fact that they can do a gender bend. They did that with the Ancient One, so it's really, really possible. But I think for me, the front runners, and again, we don't know. We're probably so wrong. I think Moonstone is a great possibility, and I think Queen, I'm gonna mess up her name again, Queen Varenki, I think is how you pronounce it, would be my top two picks. But also, like, if we got to see Rogue and Mystique, that'd be pretty cool. When is this movie coming out again? 2022? It's not this year.
No, it's not this year. I think 22.
So it's possible then.
It's possible.
It's possible.
It's a little off topic, but let me ask you this, since we're talking about the mutants. Do you think that Marvel would introduce different characters individually and then reveal that they're all mutants? Or Is it going to be all the mutants at once? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, could we see maybe Gambit appear here and Mystique appear there?
He's my favorite.
Before we get like the full X-Men movie, or do you think they're waiting to introduce them all at once?
I think they need to not introduce them at once, because that's, I mean, as an X-Men fan, we'd love that because we know who they are and what they can do. But I think if they're trying to also make the movie also appealing to newer fans who, like, and I know it's hard to believe, like, who doesn't know X-Men? Like, but like, right. People may not know, and this may be their way of kind of looking in. You want to make it a little bit more inviting. So if you threw a bunch of X-Men's at them, they're like, I don't know, I don't understand. But wasn't there a Fox one? How many movies were there? And now this is the. So you're telling me this is the. It's going to be a little confusing. So I think, given how Marvel has kind of done, the release of their characters, introducing them via the MCU, I feel like they start smaller. Maybe they start with Wanda and Quicksilver, depending on how this goes. And from there, they can say, well, let's introduce them to, like, Magneto and Professor X. And then from there, we can slowly expand. And I think Deadpool was a great way to do it if they want to bring in certain mutants, and then, like Colossus and things like that, and just kind of slowly build from there. I think that would be kind of a better way to go. And then it'll make people realize since everything the MCU is interconnected, then once you hear the words mutant in this movie, and then in this movie, then you're going to start realizing, we've seen them in these XYZ movies, kind of like before how the Avengers sort of came together. We got one-offs, Iron Man, Thor. So I would like to think that that's the route that they go, or they could just say, you know what, here's an X-Men movie, and I'm going to say, gimme, gimme, gimme.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it would be interesting. I think it would be more interesting to see them sort of do it in that way, where they kind of introduce a few that you recognize here and then bring them all together later. But you mentioned Deadpool, and that's interesting to me because, it feels like Deadpool 3 is pretty ready to go, that they're just waiting for Marvel to say yes. Yes. And I think they will, because Disney wants to be in the Ryan Reynolds business. But I think
I want to be in the Ryan Reynolds business.
Oh, who doesn't want to be in the Ryan Reynolds business?
Oh my gosh.
But I think that they could really use Deadpool as a gateway to the X-Men universe. And Deadpool is familiar with everyone to a certain degree from the last few years. And I think that also allows Marvel to be able to play a little fast and loose with how they're introducing them. And also the fact that, the Deadpool could be aware that he's no longer in the Fox universe and he's in the Disney universe. There's interesting
Deadpool
things you can do with that. Yeah.
It's so meta that it would 100% work. Where he can even like call a timeout via Saved by the Bell and be like, "What's happening here? Did we?"
They could have a lot of fun with that, and just bringing it back to Zawe Ashton. You're right. Now I want to see. Now that I know she's going to be in this movie, I'd like to see some of her other work. And I love the idea that Marvel does introduce new up and coming actors, and kind of, Zazie Beetz is another great example. I wasn't that familiar with her work before Deadpool 2 and Joker. And of course, then, she's become one of my favorites. So
she's great.
So it is really awesome that, while Marvel obviously does still bring in, their Jeff Goldblums and their Jeff Bridges and their Michael Douglas and, Michelle Pfeiffer and the big kind of iconic names, we do get to discover a Chris Hemsworth, or maybe look at a Chris Pratt in a different light than we've seen before, coming off of his sitcom work. So it is really cool that Marvel kind of gives, actors those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Can't wait. Of course, we'll keep our eyes peeled for any new developing news and updates.
While we are on the subject of mutants, let's just skip over to WandaVision.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a weekly recap. So obviously we know that show's been kind of moving at a pretty good clip the last few episodes. I felt like this was a bit of a setup episode, a lot being set up for the next couple of episodes, but super fun and some really great stuff. We got to some interactions with Quicksilver, with the new Quicksilver, and Wanda. What did you think?
I enjoyed this episode so much. Of course, there's no big wow cameo in this one, which I'm totally fine with. I don't need this show to be cameo after cameo. I think the introduction of Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver is really, really great to see for episode 5. So for this episode, I love that we get a couple of key things. More of her twins, Tommy and Billy. We kind of see them coming into their own power. Getting to see them in their iconic costumes, of course, is always fun via Halloween costumes. Let's see. Vision kind of realizing there is something weird, something maybe wrong here, and he's going to investigate. And this is kind of, since the big fight in the previous episode, we see now in this one, he's kind of saying, no, Wanda, this is what I want to do. You can't make me. And she's kind of like, all right, cool. You go do your thing. So they're starting to, I don't want to call it friction, but there you do start to see a little bit of that in their relationship. And of course, Uncle P. Pietro is in the episode rocking the hair, the swoopy hair, showing off his power, playing with the twins and asking some very specific questions to Wanda. How are you doing all this? Where were the kids? Props on keeping all the families together. And also mentioning that, your dead husband can't die twice or something like that. I find that conversation very intriguing because let's just say that even though he looks different, it is like the Aaron Taylor Johnson Quicksilver. He had died prior to all of this. So he would know who Vision is, but he wouldn't know anything else after the fact. So who kind of read him in? Why is he kind of prompting Wanda about how you doing this, huh? How you doing this, sis? If truly Pietro is her brother, regardless of what he looks like, he would really care more for her well-being than anything else. And that kind of could be your dead husband can't die twice. It's kind of like, well, we know he's a little bit, sarcastic, but I felt like that was a bit like maybe not Quicksilver talking. He also didn't ask some questions. Oh, where'd your accent go? Where's your accent? And, they're remembering the Sokovia Halloween a little. He's remembering a little bit different than Wanda. I noticed he used, and this is me probably reading way too much into this, but he did mention nightmare. The term nightmare was brought up twice. So that makes me think, like, is nightmare a part of this whole thing? Is he one of the big bads? And also Agnes. An interesting conversation between her and Vision, stuck at the border where Wanda tells the twins to not go Ellis Avenue, basically almost at the border of that town there, and seemingly stuck, kind of like the residents. Even though she wasn't quite as frozen as the rest of them, she was still able to speak a little bit. She just seemed a little like not in her normal mind until Vision did the little mind trick on her, and she's kind of saying that's the takeaway. He doesn't remember what are the Avengers, and he had mentioned this. Like, I don't, in the previous episode when they fought, him and Wanda, I don't remember. I don't know who I am. I don't remember it in my life before any of this. So he's starting to realize, like, what is this? Actually venturing outside of Wanda's hex. And the hex doesn't want him to leave because it was literally pulling him apart to keep him from going all the way out. And of course, Hayward's, well, he really wants out, doesn't he? And I was like, well, go get your weapon. You had him in your facility. Go get him. And then, of course, we see Wanda expanding her power, expanding the hex to save Vision, and kind of swallowing a lot of New Jersey with her, including the entire sword base, turning it into a circus, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, she thinks it's a circus and they're all clowns. That's hilarious.
Well, there are 2 points that I noticed. And well, that's one of my points I wanted to ask you about. So they mentioned that Monica may have some powers now, that something's going on with Monica because she went through the hex twice. So when Darcy went through once, assuming that she'll get out of the hex before the end of the series, assuming that the hex goes away at the end of the series, will Darcy have powers too?
I mean, that'd be kind of cool. But what would she?
Yeah, I don't know.
What would it be?
Right.
What would it be? And it would.
With Monica, we get it because we know she's Captain Marvel in the comics. Darcy, I believe, may be in the comics now, but was created for the first Thor movie. So there's not that, she becomes this character, she becomes that character. So, and then you also have to wonder everyone else who is trapped inside Westview, when they eventually get out, will they have some sort of cosmic powers too?
Yeah.
It's interesting that they dropped that in.
It is interesting that they dropped that in, and they've visited, ever since Monica came back from the Hex and her blood work, when she was kind of being examined and stuff like that, her blood work and all of her tests, like they were saying they had to redo it because it was like wiped clean or whatever it may be. And initially everybody kind of thought it was because she was in the blip.
Right.
Or at least not everybody, but some people thought that maybe caused because she was in the blip. And that's why. And now the show has told us that her blood work and everything is coming back different because she has gone through, the wall of the Hex, not once, but twice. So, and then now Darcy's in it as well. So it does beg the question of, does this affect every single person that goes through the Hex because of Wanda's powers? And is this how we get the mutants? And I think I've heard previously, I remember, if I can remember correctly, that the mutants are technically born with their mutant powers and it wasn't kind of given like this, but I don't know if that was specifically tied to like the comic book source material, and that's because if that's the case, then our theory kind of goes kaput for how we get X-Men in the universe. But so if that's the case, then we can kiss that theory goodbye. But if it's not the case, then maybe this is how the MCU introduces us to why certain people have mutant powers.
I can say that prior to House of M, that is in the comics how the mutants, they were born with it, as opposed to gamma rays or a spider biting you or whatever.
Right.
But that may have changed a little bit because spoiler alert, if you haven't read House of M, it ends with Wanda saying no more mutants, and like 90% of mutants are wiped out. So how it's in the comics today, I don't really know, but yeah, that originally that was that they were born with that. So the other point I wanted to ask you about WandaVision, the $1 million question: who is this expert that Jimmy and Monica are going to meet? Who is this science expert?
I don't know. So, okay, couple of things. Was it in episode 5 where she said, and I want to say the term she used, I get confused if it was aerospace engineer or neurospace engineer. I thought that she said neurospace engineer, but other people are writing it as aerospace engineer. So it could possibly be a way to introduce members of the Fantastic Four, whether it be Reed Richards, it could be a Sue Storm. Some people who, like international viewers of the show, who watch with the captions on, say that the engineer was a feminine pronoun that they had used. So if that's the case, then we can maybe think it's Sue Storm. If we want to really tie it into the rest of the Disney Plus shows that are coming up, it could be Ironheart. But I feel like it's really early for that. I don't know, but it could be.
Agree. I think it's early for Ironheart, although you're right. They could decide, let's introduce her here so she's more understood when we do the series.
Correct.
So that's possible. I've read that some theories think that John Krasinski is going to show up as Reed Richards. I do not think that's the case.
If that is the case, I need Emily Blunt.
I would love, of course, and I would love, but I really don't think that. I still hold the theory that the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. mentioned he's missing astronauts in space in like episode 3, and I still hold that they probably blipped away and maybe didn't blip back because they're caught in the negative zone, which is a Fantastic Four thing or something like that. I don't know.
I like that.
Would I not love to have John Krasinski show up as Reed Richards? Of course, but I just don't think that that's what they're going to do yet. Obviously, Fantastic Four members would make a lot of sense, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I feel like it's going to be someone we've already seen, but obviously with no Tony Stark, I mean, would they go to Mark Ruffalo? Would they go to Bruce Banner?
It would be Bruce Banner, or maybe
Shuri makes sense, but I don't think there's any connection. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that Monica would have ever met I mean,
she would know of.
She would know of, but a lot of like the Shuri interaction with the Avengers was right before the blip. So I don't know. But I think Shuri would make it would be great to see Peter Parker, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Bruce Banner or Shuri, as far as people we've already seen, would make the most sense.
Could it not be Doctor Strange, who is not an engineer of any sort?
No, I don't think it would be Doctor Strange because he's more magic.
This is true.
And of course, medicine. But maybe Hank Pym?
Whoa. I hadn't thought of that.
There's a lot of scientists in the Marvel universe already. So, or it's
but
somebody.
Then Jimmy would know. Wouldn't Jimmy know because he knows all of them?
You're right. Well, with Hank Pym, certainly. You're right. With Hank Pym, you're definitely right. Jimmy would know him. How much Jimmy knows some of the others, I don't know. But or it could be someone from the comics that we have not seen yet, that we haven't been introduced yet. If that's the case, I'm guessing it's going to be more of a minor character than a Reed Richards or a Sue Storm, because I just feel like they're too major to introduce in this. I
had the theory that it maybe would be Victor Von Doom. I don't know why. It just snuck in my head. Sure, why not?
I mean, that would be interesting. You could introduce him sort of as on, our side before go. But I also feel like he's a really big.
Yeah. He's a big bad.
They're gonna save him for something. I don't see them just sort of introducing him like this. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, honestly, who knows? In this show, I mean, we have 3 episodes left at this point. So I think we're starting to, maybe for the final 2 episodes, I feel like we're going to get less of that like sitcom. You know how we always, right now, traditionally, other than episode 4, other than episode 4, we've started with, seeing Wanda and Vision, their lives living out via a sitcom era. And then we kind of then go back and forth to the actual reality where Sword is and things like that. So I feel like for the final 2 episodes, we're going to definitely get less of the sitcom and more of, Wanda trying really hard to protect her world and her bubble. And now we have kind of threefolds, Sword under the direction of Hayward will continue to try to want to infiltrate. And then we will have Monica and, Darcy is now inside, but I guess Monica and Jimmy trying to kind of infiltrate in their own way and trying to get through to Wanda in that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see too much more of the TV aspect, the show aspect of the show, unless they filmed some sitcom of the 2010s that we're not aware of. I kind of feel like the last one we saw was sort of like the Modern Family, Malcolm in the Middle, combo. And that was the last sort of setting I heard, sitcom setting I heard that they might be doing. So unless there's another sort of, 30 Rock, Parks and Rec kind of era, that may be it. So, well, we got a few minutes left, Wendy, and we just wanted to mention, some sort of big, at first it was reported as a reboot, and now Adam Weingard, the director, has announced that it is in fact a sequel to 1997's Face Off, that he will be directing, of course, the classic John Woo action movie with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. For those of you not familiar, the 2 actors trade faces, and it makes sense. And both of them get to chew up the scenery, being the other. So it's kind of a classic 90s film. What do you think about it being a sequel and not a reboot?
Well, I, for one, am glad that it is not a reboot. That is a reboot that we didn't need. I don't feel like that movie needs to be remade at all. I really don't think you can replicate what Travolta and Cage did for this movie, nor do I want to see somebody try, because it's going to be hard, because it definitely has a following. That movie and those actors have a specific following. So if you try to just even recreate it, there's going to be so many people. Either I feel like some of the responses would be, this is an exact remake scene for scene, line for line, or they took too much liberty, and then the magic of the original one wasn't really delivered in this one. So I feel like a sequel is definitely a better way to go. I am curious as to see how they approach this as a sequel, and if we will get to see some of the characters return, probably, right? You think?
If it's a sequel, if he's calling it a sequel, I got to assume that you'd want to bring Travolta and Cage back. Like, I don't know what
at least for one scene.
I don't know what the point of making that movie is if you don't bring them back, right?
Right.
So I agree wholeheartedly that better sequel than reboot. I think if you do reboot, you kind of maybe fall into that Point Break thing where where, like you said, it's just sort of shot for shot or reimagined, and it's not, you lose the magic. And I think a lot of the magic of Face Off is those two actors, is seeing Nicolas Cage, dressed up as a priest, eating up the cedar, you know what I mean? Like, he does this crazy, like, like that face, like he's got full Cage face, the whole thing. And then seeing Travolta do Cage is awesome. So I feel like that's the whole thing, is to bring them back. But then I feel like Cage dies at the end of the first one. So I'd have to rewatch it or Wikipedia it, but I feel like he's dead. So I don't know how you bring that. And do they trade faces again? And now they'd be trading, no offense to any of the actors, but old man faces. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Or do you do a sequel and it's like their sons have to trade faces? Ooh, and then they're there.
Like a revenge plot?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd like that, but I don't know what the plan is. I like Adam as a director. I really like The Guest and a few of his other films. I'm looking forward to
Godzilla.
King Kong Godzilla. Yeah. So, if you could tackle Kong and Godzilla, if he pulls that off, then he can do Cage and Travolta, no problem. But it will be interesting to see. I mean, like, what do you think the plot could be? Like, what would the plot be?
I think what I was going to say sounded like remake, so I'm going to scratch that immediately. I feel like it may be like a copycat scenario, where because how many years that's the whole thing too, is how many years has passed since the end of that movie, or are we picking up from exactly where they left off? Which I wouldn't really love that. I would love like few years have passed. And the stories becomes legend and things like that, and some individuals out there, try to repeat the process, and then you kind of and that's where you can kind of loop in the original actors for certain scenes.
It's interesting because the first movie came out in 1997, and I think kind of took place in present day, but we all had to like suspend disbelief because 1997, you got guys couldn't switch faces. You know what I mean? Now, you still can't do that in 2021. But I wonder, we have
deep. Oh my gosh!
Yes, you're going exactly where I was going, Wendy. With deep fake technology and all that kind of stuff, like they're going to obviously have to update sort of the explanation of the technology and all that. So, it'll be interesting to see. But I don't know how you do it without Nicolas Cage. I mean, Travolta was great, but so much of Travolta's great performance is him doing Cage. Yeah. So if you don't have Cage, I don't know what you got.
I got it. It'll be a movie. Everybody is Cage. Right? Everybody's wearing Cage faces. Everybody is just getting to be Cage. I want to try to be Cage.
Right.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
The character he played is dead, but then other people start wearing his face. So that Nick Cage, the actor, can be in the whole movie. It could be like that Malkovich scene from Being John Malkovich. Malkovich. It's just be Cage.
Yeah, and there's no casting announced, so we don't know if Nick Cage is indeed or not indeed involved in this.
No, but I'm pretty sure he's available.
But I like that. I really like that theory of, because now we're in the digital world.
Yes.
Deepfake is certainly a thing. So you can start with, planting someone at the scene of, framing them for certain things, and, pinning them as like a traitor. They've committed treason. You can go as far as that to, just like cold blood murder or something. So that would be really interesting, and seeing kind of, it'll just depend on how it plays out when obviously it's called Face Off. So do they eventually will actually trade the face, or will it continue to be digital? Because it's fun and it's interesting, but it can also limit the physical interactions of these actors.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think that audience members, or certainly audience members that are familiar with the first movie, you know, I think they're going to expect some sort of like actual face switching or something. But, you know, with the whole deep fake thing, I mean, it's a really interesting, it'll be really interesting to see if that's part of the direction they're going in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited for Face Off. We've decided Face Off is a good thing. Yes.
Yeah. It's a. I am just glad it's not a remake. I'm fine with the sequel.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I'm excited
to
to see if we get any casting announcements in the near future.
Probably in the coming months. I would imagine.
I would imagine if they do get Travolta and Cage back, that'll be an announcement they want to make.
That's kind of hard to keep the lid on.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
exactly.
saying? Like,
exactly.
These are big name actors, so people will know.
Wendy, we got a minute or two left here, and we always like to check in about theme park news, if there's anything going on in the theme park world that we should be aware of.
Yeah, so we know that Disneyland and Disney California Adventures has been closed since March of 2020. And it's just been recently reported that Disney California Adventure is reopening, but not in the capacity you think. They're actually reopening for a ticketed food and beverage event. If you've been to California Adventures, it's predominantly, as Disneyland, predominantly outside. So everything will be more outdoors. It is a ticketed limited time event, so it's not going to be a continuous ongoing thing. The rides are not likely to be opened. They're going to observe, all the safety protocols such as social distancing, mask wearing, hand sanitizing, things like that. And I believe limited capacity as well. But this is kind of a way, to get people back into that Disney mode. And I know Downtown Disney is open. I believe Buena Vista is open currently, if you have some shopping that you want to get done. I haven't personally gone, but I've talked to plenty of people that have visited Downtown Disney during the pandemic, and they felt safe and comfortable, and that the cast members are doing a great job of reminding everybody to keep their masks on, to continue to social distance and wash your hands. But I am really excited. I haven't decided yet if I want to go, because I want to know a little bit more about the event. What kind of food are they offering? They're also saying that there will be very carefully catered, unique entertainment that will happen throughout the day during the event. So I want to know a little bit more, like because it's a food and beverage event, what kind of food are they going to offer? Is it because they're saying that it's going to be food from around the resort, which is great, but I don't want to pay the entry fee and then have to pay additional for the food. If the food is just going to be Disneyland corn dogs and churros and popcorn, because I love them, they're great, but you can't just center your entire event around that. So, I'll have to wait and see what kind of food they decide to give us during this event. But I've gone to almost all the Disney DCA food events, and I am dying to go. So we will see how I feel once the menu comes out.
Do you miss going to theme parks? I mean, has that been a big thing during the pandemic? That you are you excited to get to go back once they open again, and it's safe for everyone?
Yeah, I am. I haven't gone at all. I miss it greatly. My husband and I have been pass holders for a really long time, and we try to hit it up, at the minimal 2 times a month. And sometimes we'll go, even if it's like we feel it's too crowded for us, then we'll just walk around, we'll eat food, we'll people watch, we'll go and just go in the shops and, kind of let the families who we know have traveled long and far kind of, get that experience, because we're pass holders. And we did get to go on Rise of the Resistance once. So that was nice. We woke up super early for that and did all the procedure. It was a lot of anxiety induced, are we going to get on this ride or not? But we did. I do miss it. It's my happy place. It's a place where a lot of my friends and I meet up. A lot of our audience from the movie couple, we call them the movie bunch. That's where we've met a lot of them in person. We had hoped to continue to meet them, via Disneyland. Unfortunately, this year, or should I say last year, was not the time to do so. So we haven't done it. And so if I go, this will be my first time kind of even just going back in the Anaheim area. Yeah.
I mean, I actually missed the new Star Wars park. I didn't get to go when it opened, and then 6 months later we hit the pandemic. So that's one of the things that I can look forward to when this is all over, is getting to enjoy that.
You'll have so much fun if you love Star Wars. Even if you don't love Star Wars, it's very immersive. It's really cool.
Oh yeah. No, I can't wait. I can't wait to get a chance once that time comes. But we are at the end of our show. We want to thank you all for tuning in and remind you that we're just one of the shows the Hollywood Critics Association is launching this year. So you want to make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, tune in every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and also keep an eye on HCA's social media for more on our upcoming shows. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I always love talking nerdy stuff anytime.
Wendy, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's just my name at Wendy Lee Szany. I don't know if it's, wait, let me see. It's, yeah, right. I knew I was going to point to that. I was trying to. I was like, there we go. Right there. So if you want to continue the conversation, talking more nerdy stuff, just follow me on, Instagram and Twitter at that handle.
Awesome. And I'm Jami Philbrick. You can find me at Instagram, at Twitter, at Philbrick. You see it right there. There we go. And Jami Philbrick on Facebook. We'll see you again on the Pop Council podcast next week. Thanks so much.